Hey, my name is Dave Luna, and today I want to talk to you guys about creating a voice in social media. And it's been through my experience that there would be four main phases when you're trying to create a voice in social media. And those would be a planning phase, a building phase, a phase where you engage, and lastly, a phase where you analyze the three prior phases. So let's first look at the planning phase. Well, it's usually said that planning is priceless and that the plans themselves are useless. We hear it all the time. When creating a voice using social media, the first thing you want to do, though, is plan. I think that's something we could all agree upon. And this begins with knowing what your social presence is, along with the social presence of your industry and competitors. Doing these things is going to lead to a social media strategy. So let's look at what the first step would be. I think that first step would be a social media brand audit. You want to see what your brand's doing. What kind of connections do they have out there in social media? Do you guys have any influence? When you say something, are people looking, are paying attention to what you say? Are they commenting on it? Are they sharing the content that you're producing? What about your competitors? What kind of connections do they have? Should you be connected to some of those people? Also, what kind of influence do they have? Something that you can measure yourself against. If you say something, how are people responding compared to your competitors is very valuable information. Lastly, in my opinion, probably most importantly, is what is the industry talking about? Where are the news resources? Where is everyone in your industry looking to? In the tech industry, it could be something like TechCrunch or something like that. So in your specific industry, finding that out is very key to having a good social media plan and strategy. So in these news resources, you're going to find out what the trends are, the current trends, and you don't want to be, left behind. You don't want to be out of the loop. So also you need to know about the influencers and also the channel analysis. What channels are actually being used in your industry? Is it more LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? Whatever it may be. Having all these things, when you understand your brand, your competitor, and your industry, well, you know what type of position that you're in. And after that, when you know your position, now you can decide, hey, where do I need to go? How do I need to actually, we look at the first column here, what type of message do I need to have with my brand here? What is the mission of my brand? Making sure that we reiterate that. You might have already done it on your website and other places, but make sure that it's also being displayed out in social media. That you do have a goal. Where do you want to get to? That should be part of the brand message. Also talking about brand benefits. Why is your brand A better than brand B? And lastly, how are you going to talk to those people, your target audience? How is your brand going to relate to your audience? Next, you would want to talk about a channel strategy. What channels are you going to use? Are you going to use Twitter? Are you going to use Pinterest? Whatever it may be. Again, this goes back to, where's your industry at? So looking at from what happened in the brand audit, now we can say, yes, these are the channels that I want to use. Also, how usable are these channels? How much can you do with them? And also, can you optimize your brand in those channels? So you need to understand these channels, how to utilize them, how they function, and this needs to be a strategy. Next, you want to have a connection strategy. Now that you selected your channels, make sure that you have a community manager that's listening, doing, and I'm going to get into those things a little bit later, but this connection strategy, the community manager and the community contributors, those people are going to help you get connected to other people in your industry by selecting the channels and utilizing a community manager and having people from your brand contributing to the community. So as a little review here, the social media audit is going to give you, let you understand what your position is, and the social media strategy is going to give you some type of direction. So after the planning phase, you want to start building things, and you need to build a lot of stuff. First thing you want to do is build a content library, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. You need to build a message, you need to build an audience, build relationships, build a respected reputation, you need to build a social buzz. And what I would almost think is the key thing here is make sure that's designed well. And when you build all these things, what you're actually doing is you're creating your social brand. So the first part in the building phase would be content creation. So when we talk about that library, we're talking about building up content that talks about, first thing I have here is brand education. How would you explain your brand to other people? Maybe people who don't know you, people who do know you, the different type of messages that you can you want to express. You need to build content for those things. You also want to talk about your industry. Maybe someone's new to the industry, and your social brand can be the first thing that they see. So you being an expert in the industry and you have all this content talking about the industry is going to be very good for you. And also you'll need to build a library of campaigns. So when you start a campaign, you're not struggling to have all this content being pushed out. You've already built it. You have a library. You have a resource. So you never want to be caught off guard. It's like, in a conversation, you want to be ready for those conversations. If you have nothing to say in social media, people are going to stop listening and they're going to stop following. So building your library, a content library, is very huge. Next, content that you need to build is making sure that you're going to reference people. You want to reference your industry, whether it might be a government body, something like the NRA, the FDA, whoever it may be in your industry. Make sure that you're referencing them. You're becoming a trusted news resource for people, and you're referencing your industry. You want to reference influencers. Make sure that people in the industry, that the ones who are looked up upon for advice and their opinions, make sure that you reference those people. Say, Mr. Smith said this about something. Well, say that, yes, I agree with that, or that's a good point. Building those type of content is very key to having a successful social media campaign or strategy. Also, make sure that you're always referencing your brand. I think that one's pretty easy. I think that's what I see the most of what people use social media for, is to just reference their brand. But there's a lot more than that. It's kind of, again, like the conversation here. You don't want someone always talking about themselves. That can get pretty arrogant and boring, and I guess annoying too also. Again, you want to reference any promotions that you have. It's a part of marketing. Social media is, especially for your brand. And then reference the campaign that's currently happening right now. Also, content creation that you need to build is live events. This is huge. Some type of conference is going on, some news events going on, whatever it may be. Let people want to follow you during those events. So before an event happens, maybe you could be sharing out what the event schedule is, uh, making sure that you know what the event news is happening, making sure that you're telling people, hey, these are the influencers that are in this event, and then using event hashtags so that people that are looking up those hashtags uh, can see your content. So this is all stuff that you want to build. This is content that you need. When you have all this stuff, all this diversity here, you're actually going to have a good personality. So you want to build a social personality. Next thing you need to build is your channels. So whether it may be Twitter or Facebook, whatever it may be, that the branding is good. When you building the channels, making sure that the message and the tone, whether it be a cover photo, a background, the avatar, everything has the same message and tone of either that campaign or the normal look and feel that your brand should have. So that goes along with themes and campaigns. So make sure that you brand your channels in your brand. Sounds a little redundant. Next, make sure that the design is very well. That the avatars, they're not pixelated. The backgrounds aren't pixelated. That they go together. So making sure that the design is well, it's a good experience. So that would be kind of like the UX, making sure that the user experience is very pleasing. It makes sense. It's recognizable with your brand, and also that hopefully that there's some type of interaction in the design of your channels. Again, this is social media. It's supposed to be social, a two-way stream here. And then lastly, when you're creating your channels, you want to make sure that you're trying to build an audience. When you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're building super fans and followers, and then fans and followers, and then industry influencers. You want to build this type of audience and identify them, because you're going to interact with them differently. From a fan or a follower to an industry influencer, you're going to have a different message, a different tone with those types of people. When you build all these channels out, you're going to have exposure. So if we review here, what you're building is you're building content, you're building your social personality, and then you're building channels so that your social personality is able to be seen. So after you build, the next phase we talk about is engage. And the engage phase, this is where you actually start sharing your brand's voice, which is what a lot of people would think is a lot about what the majority of the engage phase should be. But I would disagree. And I would say that when you listen to your industry and your fans and followers, competitors, and your brand mentions, that's the most useful information that you can actually get from being in social media. So that's a good part of engaging. Listening is a verb. And then lastly, in the engage phase, you're going to respond with your social brand in mind. That you respond with your brand's voice. So on the first part of the engage phase, you are basically just managing your channels. So when you are pushing your content, you should want to schedule it. You should know what you want to say. Monday through Friday, whether it be Monday through Saturday, whatever it may be, it depends on your industry. Make sure that you schedule it out. Make sure that you're saying something every single day, so that people are going to want to come back to it. Also, that you other type of content that you're pushing is real time, and that's with responding. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, so next we talk about listening. What are you listening to? Well, make sure that you have a social media management system that can listen to keywords, that can listen to the hashtags, that you're listening to your industry, that you're listening every single time your brand gets mentioned, and that you're listening to your fans and your followers. And then in your channel management, responding is huge. And you want to have different responses for things that are happening, for different things that are happening. So community engagement, if there's a negative, positive, or neutral response or comment, you're probably going to have to respond in 3 different ways. When someone starts following you, is there a response there? If there's a conversation that's happening, maybe it's not even just between you at the brand, and a follower or someone else. Maybe it's 2 followers having a conversation. Make sure you know how to cultivate those conversations. And what's really key here is to know how to manage any type of criticism that comes your way. When you push content out, try to be prepared for what people may say. And again, it's a conversation. So, you might make mistakes, and we've seen stuff out there like Instagram, their terms of service, and the way that they handle that. Be prepared. Social media can get out of hand or escalate very fast. So you want to make sure that you can own your brand. So in the engage phase, you're pushing content, you're listening to your industry and other things, and then you want to make sure that you're responding to your community, fans, followers, and criticism, stuff like that. The last thing we're going to talk about then is the analyze phase. In this phase, you're going to ask a lot of questions, and hopefully you're going to get some answers when you analyze the data that's come back to you. So, does your brand have social influence? Does your brand have a healthy social sentiment? Are they positive or they're negative when they're talking about your brand? Things that you should know and you should want to know. Make sure that you're knowing what the current social trends are in your industry, and that you're creating some reports. How many times, how much content did we push out, and what happened with that content. So creating social reports, gaining social intelligence. When you do all this stuff, again, it's going to help you create a better social media strategy. So if you look at the first part here, we're going to see that you're just analyzing kind of at the individual level, and then kind of at a bigger picture. So you want to analyze your brand. What type of influence does your brand have? What is their sentiment? What trends are you creating with your brand? And then make sure that you understand all those things, and you'll get your brand intelligence. You want to do the same thing with your competitors. Are they gaining? Are they losing influence? Are you losing fans and followers to your competitor? Are you gaining them? So you really want to make sure that you analyze your competitor also. So what kind of influence do they have? What do people think about them? The sentiment towards them. What kind of trends? What do they think is a good idea? What do they think is a good social media strategy and stuff like that? And then so you'll have intelligence about your competitor, which is obviously a great thing to have. And then with the industry, what were the key topics that kept coming up, week after week, year after year, month after month, whatever it may be, whatever time period. And again, seeing what type of trends are happening in the industry. And then so you have, vital intelligence about that. So you can create a better social media strategy. You can create better content. So you want to analyze. And so the reporting, I think is very good to report weekly, maybe report monthly, quarterly, and yearly. So you can see short-term and long-term effects of stuff that's happening in your social media presence. So this would be great for you to understand these things. um, so when we review this, make sure that you analyze your brand, your competitors, your industry, and that you're reporting so that you and your brand understands what's going on. And when you understand these 4 phases and you push them together, I think this is how you can create a good voice in social media. This is now you can be loud and be proud. So thanks for taking the time to listen. Hope it was useful, and yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.